Awesome. Thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to come and join us for this event tonight. Really appreciate it. A big thank you to all the partners who are co-presenting tonight and co-sponsoring the event. Wouldn't be possible without them. There's some really good content available tonight. So I hope you get a lot of value out of the event. Thank you to the Victory officers for providing the best working space in Australia, second fastest growing company last year. Well done, guys. And also for co-sponsoring this event. Everyone to the migration company as well, thank you for coming and contributing and being part of the journey. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. It wouldn't be an event without you, so thank you so much. So we're just going to do a little introduction to the migration company. So this is our third series of events in January. We've done Sydney, Perth and Melbourne. So this is where we also do the drone prize. So congratulations, you can't win if you don't actually arrive. So you're all in line for winning that. We'll do the prize draw at the end. Please, help yourselves to drinks, bathrooms over there, food. And again, thank you. So the migration company, I started the business in January last year, so we've cracked the magic 12-month mark. We're 13 months old now, so we're still here, and we've had some good success. So we've grown to 33 people in that time, which is pretty steady, solid growth, with locations in Perth, Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. So what is the migration company? Obviously I think it's pretty self-explanatory with the name. But our vision is to simplify every data infrastructure or application migration, just to make things simple, easy, repeatable, take the pain, take the greed out of the process, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But our goal also is to help people reduce their costs or increase their revenue. If we aren't helping people do that with technology, then what's the point, in our opinion? That's why we partner with cost optimization companies like Cloudability to help organizations get the most of that transition once they get there, so that they can save costs or increase productivity through their workforce. So what do we do? One of the cool things that we do and helps us guarantee much faster migrations for customers is we pre-build our migration environments in our own AWS or Azure or Google environments with our migration technologies installed on top of those. So typically, consultancy would come and say, I need this infrastructure, I need these service accounts. Then you're spending a whole bunch of money just to set up the migration environment before you've even started the migration. So we've taken that out of the process. We've got some good agreements with some of the, basically Equinix, which is the 550 data centers around the world. They have preferential peering into the cloud vendors such as Microsoft, AWS and Google, which means we get better throughput. We have the best partners in the industry, which make the best tools for different kinds of migrations, depending on whether it's data infrastructure or an application. So all of that means we've really thought about the process, the people and the technology around the migration concept. And I think this is what really puts us apart and ensures that we can run fast, secure, and make the process as easy as possible. Obviously, every migration is unique. Every migration has its own challenges. But with our focus, we've taken a lot of that pain out of the process, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. This is my last slide, then I'll hand over. But basically, 4 key services at the migration company, surrounded by some of the softer skills too. So Ivan, who's our head of digital transformation over there. Russ, who does our end user adoption and training, information management, enterprise architecture, all that stuff around this is also part of what we do. But ultimately, 4 key services. Cloud discovery. We've actually created a new role in the industry called a TCO consultant. What we do there is we use our tools and we help organizations understand their current environment, wherever that may be, help them with cost predictions for their cloud environments, help them with return on investment, total cost of ownership, a business justification. basically helping them get buy-in from the business in that discovery phase. On top of that, we also obviously then create the blueprints for the migration. So helping people understand if it's a data migration, what kind of information they have. Is it being secured against PCI or privacy? Basically shedding lights on dark data. Helping them do things like data classifications, permissions, re-permissioning, re-architecture, all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of words. Cloud migration. So this is, obviously where we have our migration factories, all our various different tools. Some of the cool things we do there is things like process level discovery, which is important in the migration process because a lot of the times you might move an application or a server and something breaks. And it's very hard to understand why. Maybe it's got a dependency on a database somewhere, or it's got an API call on something else which hasn't been moved. So with that process, we can actually create a map, a visual map of all the dependencies and put those into a virtual migration plan and move it all together so it doesn't break. So it's very, very cool. The other thing that's important in our process there is being able to do independent operating system upgrades. Okay, so we have companies that are on Windows 2000 still, 2003, 2008, and you try and put that on 2012 or 2016, and you're going to have a lot of fun, right? Maybe not fun, but it depends on your version of fun. But it's not nice, it's not pretty, it's not easy. We have technologies that will actually wrap those applications into virtual buckets, allow us to move the infrastructure across whilst doing an OS upgrade at the same time, and then releasing the virtual container application on top of the new OS, see what breaks, no downtime to the business because it's still running over here, gives us the time to fix and troubleshoot and play and fix the problem. Once it's working, we click a commit button and bang, it all goes in on the other side. So those are just two examples of the things that we've done to make these processes and no interruption to the business and as fast as we possibly can. Give you an example, we're helping a business in Perth move 21 terabytes into Azure, and we're probably going to do that in one day. So it's pretty cool. Cloud management, so this is really managed services. Once businesses get to where they're going, if they don't have the skills or they need some what we call hypercare, a hypercare period where we transition their internal teams to gain the skills to support those environments. It's where people like Russ come in to enable those internal teams to support and work and innovate on the new platform. We also can assist with that from a monitoring and a backup and a security performance. Which brings me on to the last service, obviously security. There's a huge emphasis on cybersecurity at the moment. There's even a government grant out for smaller businesses. We're launching a campaign with CyberAware very, very soon. So this is our newest partner. Welcome. So we're going to launch a campaign around helping small businesses be safe. But we also partner with some very, in my opinion, the best security product in the industry from an application service, enterprise application service point of view. And they do cool things like honeypot detection. So someone tries to hack your environment, they actually redirect them into a little server and let them go wild, and then say, okay, how are we going to hack these guys back? It's like modern day warfare. It's pretty cool. Again, micro-segmentation, so security down to the process level and the port level. It's very, very powerful stuff. So definitely look at Guardicore. That's the product there. And then obviously enabled by our services. So that's it from me. We'll have Russ talk a little bit more from the migration company later.
So thank you for your time. Thank you to TMC and other vendors for putting this on. My name's Bruce McDonald. I'm from Cloudability, as the shirt says. I've got my esteemed colleague here, Greg Winfield, who is ex-customer and also an ex-Cloudy employee and a consultant. So he's a subject matter expert when it comes to using Cloudability in its capacity. To Blair's point, Blair's swim lane is security. our swim lane is basically cloud cost economics. So we focus on, if you're about to go into the cloud, looking for governance and structure, when you're in the cloud, making sure you get the best out of it, and basically sunsetting into the cloud as well. So making sure that you're taking advantage of all the new technology that's available. The paradigm that we've always lived through is that we used to buy infrastructure. It took 6 to 12 months to procure. Procurement would allocate budget to it and would say, here dev team, here operations, here project team. You've got this amount of infrastructure, RAM, compute, storage, network utilization. That's all you can use. The new paradigm is it takes seconds to deploy code. It could be across the world. You've got no control over it. This whole concept around build shock comes quite quickly in the cloud. So a lot of these questions get asked during the actual process of moving to the cloud. And when we talk about the delivery of cloud from an agility perspective, and also making sure that the decisions are not being bound by any structural rigor around procurement or processing, we want to make sure that we deliver continuous agility through the use of cloud and the leverage of clouds, which I'm sure you all go through at the moment. You're at the early stage of cloud migration, you've already did a lift and shift, and you're actually trying to optimize that cloud as it is, or you might be at the other end of the spectrum, which is basically refactoring code for cloud, looking at serverless architecture, looking at Kubernetes, things like that as well. So cloud gives us that agility, it gives that speed, saves us time, and it reduces our risk from a delivery perspective. In terms of cloud cost, when we think about, I suppose, pioneers in the space, AWS always comes to mind. And we basically follow this well-architected and best practices, specifically in the cost optimization. And we're only one of 6 vendors who have been accredited with this well-architected cloud cost vertical, if you will. Again, our swim lane is solely focused on this. We don't do anything around that security space. We don't do anything around things like operational from that perspective. We do provide governance and operational capabilities, but at the end of the day, we're focused on that cost optimization. So when it comes to thinking about cloud cost, we're basically leading with the concept of FinOps. In a traditional center of excellence, you have DevOps, SecOps, ITOps, and this new paradigm, which is FinOps, financial operations. And the best way to explain that is in the terminology of helping ops talk to finance and finance talk to operations. When that bill comes in from cloud provider X, and it's either a credit card statement or it's a single line item, who's responsible for that bill? Who owns the bill? Who turned the stuff off? Who turned the stuff on? Why is this project suddenly blowing out of budget? All that sort of stuff really comes down to understanding what finance are trying to get around. And I want to make this statement really clear. Culture, best practice, and systems. Cloudability is just a system. People, process, platform. We're just a platform. In order for us to deliver a full outcome for you as a customer, we need to change the culture. We need to make sure that people understand what these workloads cost, why we're standing it up, who's responsible for the budget, and also the process from a procurement. How long does it take to procure cloud? Is the cost of money, if we were to borrow this money and invest more in cloud, is that the best thing to do based on what we can actually consume money from a bank or from a financial institution? Or should we actually park that cost and look at more optimization? So getting you to that raw capabilities of building out a better outcome. So when it comes to understanding what FinOps is in the broader scheme of things, we're not just talking about engineers on keyboards. The narrative here is, the build shock comes through. Why is this credit card statement going through the roof? And the DevOps team really push it back, or the CFO pushes it back to the infrastructure manager. The infrastructure pushes it back to the DevOps team. This is a full life cycle when it comes to actually understanding what FinOps is. Everyone's responsible for it. This is about democratization of cloud cost economics inside your organization. Everyone has to know what the cost is of cloud. It isn't cheap, but again, it's a vehicle and tool to provide more competitive advantage for you, your end user customers internally and externally as well. When it comes to cloudability from a platform perspective, we're a software as a service, and I'll show you how we basically take billing data and analyze it and produce really good information. But the concept when it comes to actually FinOps inside an organization is simply about visibility. How do we get you the information that makes more sense? So just simply standing up that bill and saying, where's the actual cost come from and who's responsible for it, and actually understanding what the, things like tagging and all that sort of good stuff. Just simply providing transparency to that information is the first, principle there. The second one is in optimization. So once we understand what workloads we've got, we now actually want to say, okay, we've invested in this application, we've invested in this project, we're investing in this department. Now let's look at the most cost-effective way to do it. So right sizing, turning off infrastructure, all the common sense stuff, this well-architected stuff. our platform allows us to basically accelerate that, so we're saving time there. And once you've basically achieved this optimization, then you go into the acceleration phase. And that's the really exciting part, because that means that we've provided visibility. We understand who owns what. We know where we need to work on. We're looking for RI coverage, reserved instance coverage. We're looking for right size. We're looking for tag coverage, all those good things. We understand what's going on there. We look to optimize it, and then we basically go into this acceleration phase. And the concept of unit cost economics is, in the case of Sainsbury, they can basically work out the cost for a can of beans to be sitting on a shelf, including the cost of cloud. So if you can get to that unit cost economics and determine whether or not this project should actually be put into production or should actually be end of life. And that's what we really want to try and achieve here. If we're able to free up capital and help you invigorate new services and new programs inside your own organization, that's exactly what we're here about. So in terms of cloudability, we are a public cloud offering. We consume AWS, Azure, and GCP. We basically take your billing data. That's all we need from you. And I should say that we also take some of your metrics, so RAM, compute, storage, so if you want CloudWatch, all that sort of stuff. We basically ingest that information. This should be scanned up, but we basically ingest that raw data, which is basically raw billing data. And that can be exabytes, petabytes per day, you name it. And I'll give you a use case there in a minute. Actually, it's probably not bad to explain. So from a size in terms of cohort of data, we basically ingest 11% of Amazon's total bill, just Amazon alone and their global bill, which works out to be $9 to $10 billion worth of basically cloud spend that we're monitoring. You see the sort of accounts that we're working with. The benefit of this information from a machine learning perspective is it's insane, right? We're able to unearth really good complex things that allow us to make recommendations to you who might not be the size of an Ancestry, who might not be the size of a Nike, but allows us to take that cohort of data and make recommendations based on multiple users. But just to that point, we're taking that raw billing data. In the case of Amazon, it's a cost and usage report. We analyze it, we normalize it, which is looking for opportunities to reference tags and dimensions, and then allow us to overlay that with all your RAM, compute, storage, utilization. And then we basically allow this machine learning capability, which allows us to draw some conclusions based on historic trending data, as well as your real data that's coming in today, and then present actionable insights. So again, Cloudability has taken a very strong stance that we will only provide recommendations. We will never action them. And what that means is that you're empowered to make a decision. Back to that culture conversation. Why should we invest in this RI strategy? Why should we right-size this? Is it going to have a better, bigger, broader impact? Is this account here going to be sunset? And have we got the best possible discounts in place for this environment? So the concept here is that it allows you to action it. So this is a very broad brushstroke of the current customers, and the key thing to take away here is that we have very legacy enterprise customers that are still running truckloads of infrastructure and data centers, and they're basically gracefully moving this stuff into the cloud in their migration and their CT programs, their cloud transformation programs. Then we also have the born in the cloud providers like the Tinders of the world. And the concept there is that they have exactly the same problems. It doesn't matter if you're a large enterprise running workloads, in data centers moving to the cloud, be it lift and shift or refactoring or looking at different architecture. And the same applies to just born in the cloud providers as well. I'm going to pause for questions right at the end. This again is a very big, I suppose, just a key couple of customers in here. I'll draw some narratives around Atlassian, and potentially you can draw some conclusions to AusPost. These are some really great examples of accounts that have really come to terms with what cloud is and how it helps them and their users basically motivate the agility and the velocity of how they're actually taking new applications to market. So when it comes to actually what we deliver as part of our value proposition, in these cases, we're not about slowing down the process of agility and transformation in the business. We're actually about giving you guidelines and an operational governance that allows you to speed up the process. We already know what the cost is going to be. We've already modeled the actual data. In the case of Atlassian, we're talking about their RI coverage. Mike Fuller is a great example of how they can completely evolve their cloud business and leverage a lot of data to make recommendations based on that. And Ibotta is a really great example where it just on average we can basically save 38% of a total cloud bill. And it's not just about the saving of the actual money; it's actually what you do with that money. And in the case of Ibotta, if they're able to free up $1 million, think what they're able to do with that. Extra resources, extra ability to actually bring in third-party consultants to help them refactor code or look for optimization opportunities. And in the case of iBoda, they're actually able to reinvest that and accelerate their growth. So it means they're more competitive at the end of the day. So Cloudability in the market today, again, we're a platform, first of all, but secondly, we're about an education. So we understand that there's lots of workloads being moved to the cloud. The problems that are seen in one customer are very much a narrative and exactly the same as other customers. We want to basically try and educate the market. So if you go to blog.cloudability.com or cloudability.com/resources, you'll get access to data scientists, you'll get access to customers, you'll get access to basically subject matter experts on this stuff, provided free of service, right? The concept here is we're trying to educate. If we can basically lift FinOps capabilities inside the organization and in the market, then that means we all celebrate the wins, basically. The concept of Cloudability is when we provide a demo, it's really awesome, right? We have this demo canvas, which you'll see in a minute, and it's very elaborative, right? It gives you access to all 3 different clouds. We bring all those different cloud vendors into one single pane of glass, which means you've got the ability to visualize that. We're going to show you the ability for dashboards. The most important thing is your data is really important to you. And what I mean by data, your billing data, right? It comes to life with your tags, with your departments, with your users. So this program here is designed to give you access to the tool. You know, ingest your billing data as much as you've got. If you have the detailed billing report or any sort of legacy CSV data that we can ingest, then that's fantastic, because that means the more data we have the ability to use, the more we can actually make it relevant to you guys. So that's really important, and we actually demonstrate this from a return on investment, opportunities to save money, and we're going to show you 30% straight out the gate. And that's it.
My name's Russ. I'm from the migration company, head of training and user adoption. I'll just tell a little bit about myself before we move into the session, just to give you a bit of background. So I've been an IT trainer for 16 years. The last 11 or so of those years specializing in cloud technologies, predominantly Office 365. Also not just the training, but mentoring, coaching, business analyst roles, things like that as well. So in short, ensuring that people are making the most of the technologies that they have available and ensuring that adoption takes place within those organizations through training and so on. So what we're going to be talking about is driving adoption, and these are the main topics we're going to talk about. So choosing the right tools for the job, identifying the appropriate people, so the key roles such as the main stakeholders, mentors, champions, and of course addressing those pesky users, which we of course have to think about, unfortunately. Planning the rollout, just ensuring that we've got a bit of a staged approach and ensuring that, that we've got some, put some thought into that side of it. As I mentioned, my focus is very much on training, so that's obviously very much a key part. People aren't going to use it if they don't know what they're doing, so certainly training is very, very important. And then finally, performing follow-ups. So, when it comes to selecting the right tools for the job, we of course need to ensure that discovery takes place, make sure there is an actual business need. No point implementing new tools if there's no identified requirement for those tools. In order to get buy-in from the appropriate people, we need to ensure that there are benefits to the organization, because that's what some people like to see, and benefits to the individuals as well, because that's what other people like to see. We are going to talk about different kind of categories of users a little bit later on in the presentation, so we'll come back to that. We need to be highlighting employee pain points and prioritizing those pain points to ensure that whichever tool we choose is best placed to address those, because of course your users are your core workforce. They're the ones we need to keep happy. They're the ones that we need to ensure are able to use the tool and then make sure those tools are fit for purpose. Again, this is what we talked about regarding addressing those different categories of users. So I said we'll come back to that in a moment. So then need to, on keyboard, identify the key roles. So main roles, things like the stakeholders, champions, mentors. We need to think about who will be impacted by implementation of these tools. Who do we need buy-in from? So we need financial buy-in, support or technology buy-in, or technology support, should I say. Who's going to assist in the rollout? So we need our champions, our mentors. Those are the people that are likely to be ensuring that the users have the appropriate knowledge, make sure that ongoing support to ensure that they are able to use those tools for their jobs. Worth pointing out, not all roles require the same level of input and output. Stakeholders, maybe they're more bothered about being informed of what's happening throughout that process. Champions and mentors are likely to be kind of often sitting in that kind of intermediary role in between the business and the project team, and therefore they're going to be providing a lot of input and output along the way. Users may well be providing a lot of input and their feedback on their opinions of the tools as they're being rolled out and things like that. So, as well as these stakeholders, champions, and mentors, of course, we have the rest of the users as well. So, they're the ones we really need to think of. So, not just those kind of key roles, but also the broader user base. So, I've split into categories. The first of which is the yes men and yes women. So the scenario here is manager, or that could be the project manager, could be a business owner, could be someone in a senior management position. Doesn't really matter for the context of the example. Says this is how we're now going to do it. Employee says, yep, okay, fine, good. So that's certainly the easiest to deal with within the organization, but are they the best? Are they the best people to have in your organization? I mean, yeah, we need some people like that, but I think that they're not necessarily the most valuable to the organization. The most valuable to the organization, in my opinion, are the challengers. So this is how we're now going to do it. Why? What's the benefit to the company? These people, they've got the interests of the organization at heart, which is good. We like those people. And they are therefore going to be the ones that kind of challenge why we're implementing that. What's the benefit? How is it going to help? They're the kind of people that make good mentors, good champions, because they're the ones that have that kind of vested interest in order to ensure that we are making the most of those tools and the users are adopting as appropriate. This is the 9-to-5er. 9-to-5er, this is how we're now doing it. All right, well, how's that going to help me? These are the people that come in at 9 o'clock, stamp the time card. People do that anymore? I don't know. They're coming at 9 o'clock. By 5 to 5, they're creeping towards the exit. Hold on, the exit's that way. They're creeping towards the exit. I just go to the bathroom. There's a back door I want to sneak out of, so people don't notice. Yeah. So often they require a bit of individual attention. We need to make sure that they've got benefits to them. How's it going to make their life easier? Okay, so instead of doing things this way, this is how you're now going to do it, because this is going to make your life easier. It's going to be quicker. You're going to free up your time to do other stuff. So, they're not too bad to have around. We need those people. We need those people that have absolutely no ambition whatsoever. Come in, do their job, leave again. If everyone's fighting for those top jobs, that's all they're bothered about. The work will never get done. We've then got the old dog. We all know those old dogs. Of course, coming from the phrase, can't teach an old dog a new trick. So this is how I'm now going to do it. Well, I just want to do it the old way. I've been doing it this way for 40 years. Why do I have to change? So again, very difficult to win over. Again, they like to see benefits to themselves. But annoyingly, often they may fall into a senior position, because often they're those, how can I put this politely? They're people that have basically worked their way into a senior management position, mainly through length of service than any form of credit to themselves. And they just want to keep going until retirement. They've got a year left. They just want to get over the line. And yeah, if they are in that senior position, they can be quite obstructive. They don't necessarily want to have to learn something new, so they want to carry on doing things the old way. That's not good for the organization. The organization is going to hit a standstill if we're not implementing these new technologies that will massively improve efficiency throughout the organization. So they can be very frustrating. Nice way of kind of helping them, or helping kind of win those people over, would be familiarity. We want them to ensure that the way they were doing it, we can make things as familiar as possible. As I mentioned, I do specialize more so in Office 365 than anything else. Implementing document libraries in a SharePoint environment. If we can ensure that the path that they follow to get to the document, instead of this horrible folder structure, we all know that folders are a terrible way of categorizing stuff. We mainly know that. Microsoft seems to have forgotten, which is why they've started pushing more towards folders in the likes of Microsoft Teams and things, which is a very odd decision. But I can kind of see where they're going. But if they normally would follow this particular folder path, then we just make sure the words they're following are the same. Instead of going to this folder, that folder, that folder, they go to this site, to this library, to this group of grouped view within the library or something like that. So we just make sure there's as much familiarity as possible, syncing to the desktops, they can access it through a Windows environment, all the little tricks to make sure that we're ensuring that they don't have to learn too much, just to keep them going until they finally retire. Or die, whatever happens best. So, when it comes to planning the rollout, the first thing is often organizations will implement a tool, say, there you go, and the user's like, great, how do we use this? Let's address that now. IT have implemented this, by the way. No input from the business. IT implemented it, here you go, what is it? It's this new tool, you'll work it out. Okay. And inevitably they don't work it out. They fumble around and don't make the most of it and don't realize the efficiency benefits they could if they knew what they were doing. So first of all, we need to avoid IT-centric implementations. Business knows best. IT cannot be expected to know all of the different business units and exactly how they do their job and what exactly they need. That's where those champions and mentors come in. Those champions receive the appropriate training so they know what the tools do, what the tool is capable of. They're then able to analyze their business processes within their organization, speak to the individual users or different teams of users within their own business unit, because they've already got some knowledge of that business unit because they work in it, but they need a more specific knowledge of those in order to then determine, okay, well, yeah, this tool is the right tool for the job, this is how we're going to implement it within our team. Each team should then be able to implement it in a way that best suits them. It's much easier to give someone with the business knowledge a bit of technical knowledge than it is to expect people with the technical knowledge, such as IT, or at least they often think they've got the technical knowledge, sometimes don't, expecting them to somehow gain knowledge of all the different areas of the business in enough detail to be able to implement these things. Not realistic. We then need to determine the order in which we're going to deploy the relevant tools. So, for example, is there a particular team or department or area of the organization that would really benefit from having this new tool as soon as possible? So it can prioritize in order to realize those efficiency benefits as soon as possible. Is there an area of your organization that's particularly excited about the new tools? So it can use that particular team as a pilot. So they can kind of showcase those tools in order to kind of, again, help with getting buy-in from the other areas of the organizations. Ensuring key dates and timelines. So, for example, ensure that people know by this particular date, we're going to be fully using the new tool, and of course, that staged approach in between. Maybe moving over to some kind of, cloud storage, cloud content management, or document management system, rather than using the old horrible shared drives and so on. So, at this point, the shared drives become read-only. At this point, they'll be removed altogether, so we'll tell the users they're deleted. Of course, they're not. We need to have that as some kind of fail-safe just in case, just for the time being. But make sure the users are aware that at a certain point, they will be 100% reliant on the new tool and won't be able to go back to their old ways. And just ensure that everyone knows that there is likely to be a dip in efficiency at first. It's like with anything. You can't expect someone to just dive in and start using something and bang, the efficiency increases straight away. People need to, of course, have that adjustment period of familiarizing themselves with those tools, and people got to appreciate that's going to happen. Not just the users need to appreciate that, but of course the business owners, the stakeholders, whoever's kind of pumping the financial support into it, need to understand straight away if things slow down, it's a waste of money already, it's already had a drop in efficiency instead of an improvement. But of course, you're always likely to get that slight drop in efficiency first. Training. allow enough budget for training. Often organizations, they think, oh, we don't need to invest in training. They can just work it out for themselves. Or just point them to YouTube or Google or something like that and get them to find the answers that way. What do you think is the most effective way of gaining information? Is it watching a video? Can you ask a video questions? No. Yes, you can ask Google questions, but it's very difficult to be very specific, and so on. So classroom training is always going to be the most effective, more so than anything else. What do they use at schools? Classroom training. It's classrooms, isn't it? The reason they do that, if it was most effective to send kids, to point kids towards YouTube, then that would save a lot of money on teachers. So it's not the most effective, that's why we have classroom training. So the most important thing is, as I said, we can't expect people to adopt the tools if they don't know what they're doing. It's well worth pointing out that training should never be seen as a cost, it should be seen as an investment. It's only an investment as long as it is appropriate and relevant to the appropriate people, and it's well delivered. Bad training is a cost, of course. The wrong training for the wrong people is a cost. But the right training delivered well to the right people is always an investment. An example that I use, if you're building an intranet that people use, or let's say it's an expenses claim form, leave request, whatever it is, something that people do on a regular basis. If you can take 400 people, let's say I've got 400 staff, and by having some training, implementing a new process that will save each of those people, on average, an hour each per week. It's not a lot to save them, but it's easily done with some nice, slightly more streamlined processes. You're saving 400 person hours a week, which is the equivalent of 10 annual salaries worth of time, just by having a bit of training and implementing something well. Simple as that. As opposed to allowing people to fend for themselves, setting it up badly, a poorly defined or poorly set up intranet, poorly set up business processes, we're only going to slow things down. So, also, as you said, we can't necessarily offer proper classroom training, albeit the most effective. We can't offer that type of training to everybody in the organization. It's not financially feasible. It's not logistically feasible due to time scales and things like that. So some users, it may be a case of, so one of the best training, or one of the best implementations that I've seen of a SharePoint environment, was they had their business users identified throughout the whole organization. They had a good level of training. They then went away and built the SharePoint sites for the relevant areas of their organization. Once it was all set up, of course, according to their relevant business units, they then, I think there was about 400, magic number today, 400 staff or something within the organization. They said, right, on this day, no one's allowed any leave, no meetings, basically block out your calendars. Because half of every team in the morning, the other half in the afternoon, went to a seminar. There's a 200-person seminar lecture theatre. In the morning, one session, afternoon, same session, just taking through the basics, navigating around, working with lists, libraries, uploading, all the basic stuff they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. In the space of one day, which cost them, say, $3,000 for that one day of training, they had 400 people with a decent level of knowledge that were told the benefits and the basics, and off they went. So, of course, they had the more comprehensive training up front, but then, so got things like, as in classroom training, then got seminars, pre-recorded videos, ongoing support, coaching, mentoring from those champions within the organization. So it's a case of ensuring that we don't have just that, one size doesn't fit all. We need to make sure that different categories of users need different levels of attention and different kind of formats for that kind of transition of knowledge. All right, the last thing is following up. So worth, again, noting that the rollout is never really finished, especially with cloud technologies that are always evolving. We need to ensure that it's not a case of saying, right, there it is, off you go, wash my hands of it. No, that's not the way we do it. Because, again, the tools are evolving, the business processes are evolving, there's turnovers of staff, all of these reasons that we need to ensure that, that we understand that the rollout is an ongoing process. Make sure that ongoing support and training is available. As we said, once they've had their initial training, the tools evolve, people's job roles evolve. Maybe someone moves to a slightly different role within their team. They now need a bit of coaching on a slightly different process. Ensure that, that feedback is encouraged in order to gain the success of that. And it's not just a case of saying, how was it? Yeah, it was all right. Thanks. Well, what wasn't good about it? What was good about it? Anything that wasn't good, act on it. Because again, anything you can do to keep those users happy. The users are the ones that are using these tools on a day-to-day basis. They're the ones that we need to ensure that we have the buy-in from the most, in order to ensure that, of course, they will continue adopting and using those tools. All right, and that's it. Pretty quick session, because I've got dinner on the table waiting home. So, so any questions? I'll take silence as a no. All right.